No niin, tervetuloa taas tänne Rambollin live-studioon ja meillä alkaa täällä Väylät ja liikennepäivien viimeinen live-sessio. Ja aihe on mitä mielenkiintoisia ajankohtaisin, eli pyöräilystä puhutaan, mikä on nyt isosti boomaa sekä Suomessa että ulkomailla. Ja koska meillä on kansainvälisiä esiintyjiä täällä mukana tai kansainvälinen esiintyjä, niin vaihdan tässä kielen englanniksi. So also in English, please welcome to our panel discussion, which is called The Great Bicycle Boom. And this session will be hosted by Reetta Keisanen from Ramboll, Finland. But we also have a special keynote speaker in this session. So we have the former mayor of Technical and Environmental Affairs of Copenhagen, Mr. Morten Kabell, who joined Ramboll and our smart mobility team in the beginning of this year. And Morten really has, because of his background, a bird's eye view and also hands-on experience how Copenhagen has become one of the leading bicycle cities in the world. Having said that, I will introduce Reetta now. Reetta is our project manager who works with bicycle traffic and sustainable mobility. She's also the vice chairwoman in Finnish Cyclists Federation. Before she came to Ramboll, she was the cyclist coordinator in the city of Helsinki. So, with further ado, Reetta, stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jukkis. Great to be here today, and we also have excellent panelists over here. So again, welcome for all of you, and warm welcome for the audience as well. And we will discuss about the great bicycle boom, like Jukkis told, and we will have a short introduction to the topic from Copenhagen. But first, we could introduce all our panelists. So let's start with our guest from Finnish Cyclists Federation, Veera Minkin. Welcome. Just tell shortly about yourself and maybe a little bit about your organization. Veera, you have your microphone muted.
Sorry, the basic mistake. Yeah, I'm Veera Minkin from the Finnish Cyclists Federation. I'm one member of the board, and I've been the member of 3 years. And our federation, we are promoting cycling as a mean of transportation, and we are also like participating the national decision making and lobbying, and trying to keep the discussion in the public in cycling, and through that then get more things done. But we will probably discuss this later then, more detailed.
Okay, thank you, Veera. Then we have Nico Palo from Ramboll, Finland. Just tell shortly about yourself and maybe your new role here in Ramboll, Finland.
Yes, thank you, Reetta. Yes, I'm nowadays planning manager for bicycle traffic in Ramboll, Finland, and I still work with some projects, but I try more and more to make sure that my colleagues are making the right decisions for our clients in Ramboll in every project. So I try to help out everyone in the company, and also we have the development team for Finnish Ramboll that we are sort of getting better and better with the cycling related issues in the planning field, and I'm leading that group also. And also I'm a lead of service line. We have the service lines in Ramboll, and one we established in the beginning of this year, considering cycling. And we have a best specialist for bicycle traffic planning from all our home geographies, Denmark, of course, Sweden, Norway, Germany, and India, and Singapore also. And I'm leading that group, so the know-how and all kinds of information that we need in planning for bicycles goes both directions. So we are collaborating in international projects, but also that is a very handy way to get the best practices to Finland. So for our clients, it's easier than ever to get the best know-how from foreign countries to Finland now through our networks.
Yeah, thank you, Niko. Then we have our head of smart mobility in Ramboll, Denmark, Morten Kabell. We are happy to have expertise from the leading city of bicycle traffic. And would you still like to tell something about yourself, or was there all what Jukki said?
Well, Jukis, thank you very much. Jukis gave a very kind introduction. I can add a bit that, yes, I have a sinister past as a politician, as a mayor here in Copenhagen. And besides that, I've been co-CEO of the European Cyclists Federation in 2020 in Brussels. So I've also been part of doing some of the lobby work in getting the whole European Union into becoming more bicycle friendly. And that is, of course, a huge task, let's put it that way. But now I'm very happy to have joined Ramboll in Denmark for the smart mobility team there. But thank you very much for the invitation today.
Yeah, thank you. And I will let you continue with the keynote introduction to the topic. So we will learn how Copenhagen became the real bicycle city. So stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And I hope you can see my screen now that it has been shared. For many years, we've been asking the wrong question. We've been asking a question on how many cars can we move down the road? And when we ask that question, we get roads that look like this in our cities. 2 car lanes, space enough for parking, and a very narrow sidewalk. This is very inefficient. We need to ask another question. Time has come for us to ask the question, how many people can we move down the road? And when we change that focus from cars, from metal boxes until people, then we get a street that looks like this. There are still places for cars. There will be people who need a car, people with disabilities, there will be logistics, all that stuff that needs to be transported. They still need some car lanes. But then we can, at the same amount of space between the houses, also get space enough for public transport. In this case, a tram, it could be many things, and a very broad bicycle lane that can transport a lot of people. When we start asking the question on how many people can we move down the road, then we get an answer like this, as I said. This street can actually transport 7 to 10 times as many people as a previous street could. So it's a lot more efficient. And we need that efficiency because all our cities all over the world are growing. Already, more than 50% of the world's population live in cities. And it's estimated by the United Nations that by mid-century, that number will rise to 2/3 to 3/4 of the world's population. So this is not really a question of a battle between cars and bikes. This is a question of how can we get our cities to work, to function, also in 30 or 40 years' time. Now, I'm from Copenhagen, a mid-sized European city of around 2 million people. And it is true that today Copenhagen is the world's best bicycling city. And then a lot of people will say, but we are not Copenhagen. We can't be that way. Well, let me tell you one thing. Copenhagen is not what Copenhagen used to be. This is the center of the city in 1950s. This is one of the most historical squares, what it looked like. One huge parking lot. You see the historical fountain on the left side of the picture, a fountain that a king had erected for his coronation, and it's still there. But at this time, nobody used it. Nobody was at the square except for cars. This is what it looks like today. Today, you have removed the cars. It's now space enough for a Swedish burger chain selling vegan burgers. You have a couple of bars. You have commercial life. Then you have the fountain and a lot of urban life where young people sit down with a beer, with a cup of coffee, and or simply enjoy life. Now, it's human scale. Now there is space enough for you and me to be there. But what's interesting is if you look at the bottom of the picture and then start counting, there are just as many vehicles parked today as there was in the 1950s. Just as many people were able to take their vehicle, now a bicycle, into town and do their shopping, do their urban life than there used to be. Now the difference is only that the bikes take up so much less space than the cars, that there is space for all the other things in the city. So the city has become smarter, the city has become more human scale. One of the greatest examples of this is probably this street. It's one of the main arteries leading into Copenhagen, and then the city center is at the top of the picture. This is what it looked like when I was a kid. And my mom would definitely not let me out here on a bicycle alone when I was 7. But this is what it looked like. 2 broad car lanes, very little space for the pedestrians, and the few thousand bicyclists that actually were there had horrible conditions. But in the middle of the picture, you see bus line 5. Bus line 5 has had the same route for just about 120 years. So from horse-driven carriages to electric buses today, the route is the same. That means that the city has excellent data on finances, on how it's being used, on how the commuters actually get through. And in 2005, a person from the city administration was in the archives and stumbled across a bus schedule of 1905. He took a copy and brought it back to his office and was shocked. He noted that the schedule was exactly the same in 1905 as it was in 2005. So 100 years and no progress. So the city had to do something. And what the city did was actually to close down a little bit of the road, 50 meters, where private cars are not allowed. The rest of the street was only rebuilt, and this is what it looks like today. Today, well, this picture is taken from the city center and out north, but today you have 1 car lane that doubles as a bus lane. You have 2 bicycle lanes of 5.5 meters width in each direction. So 2 lanes, 5.5 meters each. And then you have the very broad promenades. What's interesting today is that now there is space. This bridge, for instance, and most of the street is being used by a lot of people for just hanging out. By a lot of people that are used to just now is taking up the urban space and using it for their purposes. And then there is still space enough for all the traffic. Because when we do the numbers, this is what it looks like today. 60% less cars, 60% less more bicycles, Public transport, okay, only 5% more passengers, which may be a little disappointing. But now the buses run faster than they've done for 120 years. And that actually means that the city is earning money from this project. It cost 5 to 5.1 million euro to rebuild the whole street. Those money have already been paid back. The city earns 600,000 to 800,000 euro per year in less cost for running the public transport. So that means every year the city has money that it can spend on something else. But what's interesting are the 2 numbers on the side of the picture. A 1,400% increase in people who are just enjoying urban life. They are young people sitting down with a barbecue, or anybody who just fancy meeting friends and family. Whenever it's nice weather, and that does happen once in a while in Copenhagen, then the bridge is full of people sitting there. And then on the left side, there is 165% more pedestrians. They're old people who live in the neighborhood and suddenly feel safe again, walking on the street because they're not afraid in traffic. And then it's kids who are being sent off to school on their own, and thereby learning to become independent, instead of being followed to school or driven to school by their parents. So suddenly it's the weakest of the people, you can say, the ones who need the independence the most, who are actually taking the street back, reclaiming the street. That's a really interesting development, together with how efficient the street has become. So this is what the morning rush hour looks like. You still have some few cars, then you have the bus, and then you have this long row of bicycles who are waiting to cross the next green light. And sometimes, well, they may find themselves that they have to wait another light, even though we have green waves to make sure that the bicyclists are being prioritized in the intersection. The reason for this is the way that the infrastructure has been built. We have a 3-layer road or street where you can see that there is a car lane, and then you have a curb towards the bicycle lane. That means that it's safe and protected. It also means that the cars don't accidentally swerve onto the bike lane and thereby risk the bicycle riders. And then you have another curb from the bike lane to the sidewalk. That's for the same reason. We don't want the bicycles on the sidewalk. We don't want old people, young people, or even I hate it when I suddenly have a bicycle zooming past me that should be on the bike lane. That feels unsafe, and it is unsafe. So separating traffic in these three layers means that you can have a safe and protected infrastructure where everybody can feel at home. That also means that in this case, this mother can transport her kids to kindergarten in a cargo bike, and the kids are safe, she feels safe, and there is no problem. That also means that Copenhagen today is one of the very few cities of the world where there are just as many women as there are men riding bicycles. This is not just for the mammals, the middle-aged men in Lycra. This is for everybody of all ages and abilities, from 8 to 80, regardless of who you are. You even have now cargo bikes like this with cushions, with seat belts. And I met a guy a few years ago who wanted to be the first one to build an airbag in a cargo bike. I don't know if he's ever succeeded, but I think it was a great ambition to show that, of course, security is also everything when you deal with your kids on a cargo bike. And today the numbers look like this. This is a typical average morning commute. 62% of all Copenhageners ride their bicycle to work. 21% use their public transport, and only 9% use a car. We've had discussions in Copenhagen as well about whether to have car-free Sundays in September. And at one point, a journalist asked me when I was mayor, "Do you want to have that?" And I said rather jokingly, "Well, we could also go for a bike-free Monday to see how it would be if we prohibited bikes just one day a year." And then the journalist looked horrified at me and said, "But then traffic will break down. Hell will break loose in Copenhagen Monday morning at 6. And I was like, "You got my point. We have to make sure that we don't do this." And because bicycles today are the focus. Imagine if these 62% of Copenhageners would suddenly use a car tomorrow, there wouldn't be space for anything else in the whole city. Has this been expensive? Well, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But let me just run through the numbers. Because the city of Copenhagen has spent 280 million over the last 15 years. That means more than 10 new bridges across the harbor to connect neighborhoods. To connect neighborhoods that were torn apart, but suddenly now are connected again. That means that the city connectivity between workspaces and home are much better than before. More than 500 kilometers of bike infrastructure has been built as well. And incidentally, the same 280 million euro were the cost of one single 3-kilometer car bypass tunnel north of Copenhagen. Of course, you can choose whatever you will want to do in your city, but I know what Copenhagen has chosen simply to get the most out of our money. Because we weren't a rich city when we started this. Copenhagen was literally days away from going bankrupt in the mid-90s. So the city had to prioritize and choose the cheapest possible infrastructure. And for the city, that's bicycle infrastructure. When we continue about finances, these are some numbers from the Danish Ministry of Finance. Every kilometer you ride your bike more, society gains 68 cents. Every kilometer you drive a car, 78 cents are lost. This is due to a number of reasons, one of them being, of course, the cost of the bicycle infrastructure, but it has also to do with, for instance, health. An active population stays healthy longer. You get less obese. That again means fewer people with diabetes, fewer people with cardiovascular diseases, and so on. So there are also for the society really good background in economics actually to prioritize this. And then just to finish off by 1 or 2 pictures of innovation. This is DHL, which is now changed into cargo bikes to deliver the last mile. And we all know with Corona times that we all shop a lot more online. Well, this can be done by bicycles as well. And you can deliver literally everything, as we say, from cradle, or in this case, before the cradle, to the grave. The funeral ladies. This woman founded a company called the Funeral Ladies, and started to say that why is it that Copenhageners should be transported on a hearse in a car when we've never been in a car before. So she started a company. Now it's thriving. She has many employees, several of these bikes, and it's definitely set an example for Copenhageners. And you can see her in the weekends transporting Copenhageners to their final destination. And as I've said to my family, I don't care what kind of ceremony they have when I die, but they are sure going to transport me in one of these on my final destination. This just shows that whenever you do something like this, city transformation, you also you end up with a lot of innovation, a lot of new thinking, which is good for business, good for jobs, and definitely good for the city. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Morten. That was a super inspiring keynote introduction. And also in Finland, we have a goal to increase active mobility. And the goal is to increase it by 30% before year 2030. And that means that there will be 450 million new trips made with active mobility. So that's a lot. And this goal is set from Ministry of Transport and Communication. Then I could ask from our panelists, what could we here in Finland learn from Copenhagen? And Veera, we could start from you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very impressed always when I hear the Danish experience. And also what is for me the most inspiring is, like Morten said, that it's not some kind of natural thing that the Danes bike. It has been a political decision, and it hasn't happened like itself. So it can always be done then everywhere else if there is the will. So I think that's the most important thing to remember, because many people always say, well, we are not Denmark, but that's not the point. So we need to build the political will and decision, and it has been growing now in Finland. The cycling has been more in talks and in the political discussions. So slowly we are going to the right direction. And that's what we do in the federation. We try to keep the discussion on the correct topics, and through that then may make better decisions. But Niko, please.
Yeah, Niko, you can continue.
Yes, I agree. I have been having a close look at the Copenhagen for this 10 or 15 years that I've been specializing on bicycle traffic, and every time it's amazing to see how things are getting better and better there. And it's good that we have the talk in Finland, but we have to walk the talk also. So what I see in Finland is that we have nice pictures from red asphalt banas in some cities, but really the integration of cycling to our cities traffic system is the key to the success, and that's what I see a little bit in Helsinki happening already. So when the going gets tough, you are willing to take space away from the cars, and that is what really is needed to in order to get the success going. So we unfortunately see many cities that they may have a 4-meter wide banas, but when the intersection comes, then it shrinks down and so on. So we just have to focus more on the strategic level and kind of put it in the on the ground eventually. But of course, Copenhagen is an inspiring city in the technical details and unidirectional solutions and stuff like that, what we need more in Finland, but maybe a little bit about more of that later on. But it's really good to have those forerunner countries that have set the standard for us, and it's sort of should be easy to just follow and copy all that and put it in the local context.
Yeah, that's easy to agree with all of you, and I would also say that it was nice to see the numbers from Copenhagen, how many millions you really invest, and that's a big part of the issue, that you really have to money for build and plan for the bicycle traffic. So is there something, Morten, you would like to ask? What would we in Finland need to learn?
I think there are 2 points. I think Veera's point on that there is nothing special about Copenhagen is probably one of the key messages, because it's not in our genes, it's not in the water. It's basically just a matter of choice. And that means that any city can do what Copenhagen has done. And I think that's probably the key part of this, that there is no special part. And the other thing is that it's about 3 things: infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. Once you build a safe, protected infrastructure, people will start using it. Once it's well maintained, in winter, for instance, then people will start using it just as much as they will in wintertime. Because here you see that 3/4 of those who ride a bike on a nice summer sunny day, they also ride the bike when it's snow, cold, just around the freezing point, and you really don't want to get outside, but you still ride a bike.
Yeah, good point. Veera, you had something.
Yeah, that's very interesting, this, because I'm also thinking that the infrastructure is the very important thing. But I heard this interesting comment from a Swedish colleague once in some, I don't know in which seminar. They said that in Sweden they increased the amount of the electrical bikes with this kind of benefit that they got. And they were asked, why do you increase the amount of bikes before you have a good infrastructure? And he said it goes the other way around. When you have a lot of bikes, then actually the cities need to put money on the infrastructure. So you can see it from different directions. But anyway, the infrastructure is really the key point. But that's the point of view was kind of interesting from this.
Yeah.
And then they really did increase the amount of electrical bikes in Sweden a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it can go another way around as well, but infra is you need anyway. What about Niko? There is something you would like to say?
Yeah, just adding to Veera's comment that sort of we can see it in Helsinki already that I have heard the same story also that yes, we can build a better infrastructure when there are enough cyclists, but now Helsinki is in a situation that there is too many cyclists for that infrastructure, but the infrastructure changes so slowly that it takes a lot of time to make it better, 10 years or so for some amount of network. So it's really difficult to cycle even with the amounts of Helsinki today when the system is bi-directional and the intersections are a little bit jammed and so on. So I definitely encourage all the cities to go with the infrastructure first approach.
Yeah. Thank you, Niko. And like you said, we have also already seen that the number of cyclists are going up. Some cities in Finland, like in Helsinki, and also bicycle sales are having a super boom at the moment. So I would ask you, how is the increase of the bicycle traffic or bicycle boom affecting on your work? And we could start from Niko.
Well, of course, it's good news since we are on this business. I'm really happy to see that there are so many cities that we can work now with a certain planning style that is something that we really want to deliver also. And it seems like we need more people to work on this field. So it's almost like has been that cycling specialists know each other in Finland, but I think in the future it isn't anymore like that. And I'm really happy to see that also within Ramboll we have many specializing people on cycling, but also our loving competitors also that we really have to be better and better all the time and widen our shoulders and learn from the best and do the good work. I have to say that it's really nice to work in the big company like Ramboll because we are strong from the strategic level to all the way to the last detail of the building a bike path. So we can the same people can follow the entire process from the beginning till the end sort of. So it's really good to. I think we will have a lot of work in the future, and there is plenty of space for more specialists also in this business.
That's great to hear. What about Morten? What do you think? How does it impact on your work in Denmark?
Well, we can definitely see that there are many cities, many municipalities who keep on this work. We see that, for instance, the Federation of Danish Industries and the Federation of Danish Businesses, when they come out with mobility plans for the whole of Denmark, then they almost compete in demanding money from government to build bicycle infrastructure. And that has been really interesting to see that, for instance, this winter, we know there is going to be a new mobility plan here in Denmark. And this winter has really been one where you have businesses, municipalities, industries, everybody really working together and say, we need active mobility because it's so much more efficient. And that, of course, means that we can see it being built. And we can also see that the demand will be there in the future, both in Denmark, but also around the world in how to get this, because people are getting inspired. And we see that in many geographies where bicycles probably have never been really active, and that suddenly people are asking for green and active mobility. So that's good to see.
Yeah, great. Then we could hear from Cyclist Federation. How do you feel, Veera? How is it impacting on your role?
Well, we need to keep on lobbying on and make the politicians to understand that the money is the key question actually for many municipalities. And there is this, for example, this program that if the small cities invest money on the bike lanes or this infrastructure, they will get then support also from the state. And also what we have done, like which is actually part of this increasing this bike boom, is that we had this from this year on, we have this system that the employer can offer a bike like a tax-free benefit. And it has been a huge success. So the employers have started, and they have this argument, and now it's a little bit cheaper, or it's a little like benefit, but also they understand slowly that it's very good. The more the employers cycle, the more healthy they are, and it's in general like this kind of cycle. So these are the few things, but in general, we need just to keep on the talk and keep the discussion on, so it will become more and more common, and how you say that it won't be some small part of traffic, but it will be like more and more important, and through that. But the money is actually what motivates the best, and we have so much less money when we heard about the Danish investments, so we need to keep on working. But slowly, they are increasing the amount of money for cycling, for example, in Helsinki city and in the States, so slowly.
Yeah. That's easy to agree with you. And there is a lot of positive impact from cycling, like environmental and health benefits. And that is why municipalities and governments want more cycling. So what do you see as the key elements that the number of cyclists keep rising in the field of roads and traffic? Is it already said, or is there something you would like to highlight or add? Let's start from Morten.
Well, I think the one of the key points here is that it's actually very cheap to focus on this, because, of course, as Veera said, a lot of municipalities and cities are lacking money. But as I said, the 280 million euro that the city has spent was over 15 years. So when you divide that up and then you start dividing how much money is it per inhabitant, it's actually not a lot of money. And you never discuss spending 200 or 300 million euro on a highway. That's just something you do. It's only when we start having these kind of projects where people really discuss, do we have the money for it? Well, probably we should start the other way around. Why is it that a billion euro investment in a highway can just go through and nobody discusses it, where 3 million euro for safe and protected bike lanes is something that we have to argue in city councils for weeks? That simply makes no sense. So it isn't a lot of money. It's actually very cheap infrastructure. I think that was what made it possible in Copenhagen, because we didn't have any money. So we had to choose the cheapest possible infrastructure.
Yeah. What about Veera? Is there something you would like to add?
Maybe one thing that differs Helsinki from Denmark, and which a little bit takes money, it's always the winter, when we need to, like this winter, which keep coming snow like every other day, and we don't have enough money for the cleaning the bike lanes, so it's sometimes more complicating, and that makes people not to use the bike. There is this idea that you can't drive the cycle in the winter, which we try to also change, that we don't talk about winter cycling, we just talk about cycling all around the year. But sometimes you need a little bit more energy to go through the bike lanes in the winter. So that's maybe one question that needs to be discussed in Finland, in southern Finland especially. That for that needs to be enough money too.
Yeah, exactly. If you build it, you need to keep it on use all the time. What about Niko? Do you have something to add?
Well, Morten also already said it kind of, but I think how we can put the numbers higher and higher is the infrastructure actually, and the maintaining the bike path like you discussed before. And it's like I see that we can talk about cycling a lot and we can promote cycling, but if your product isn't good enough, then it doesn't fly. I mean, you can try to sell your bad product with the very good adverts for a long time, but at the end, people will find out that, okay, this is not very good. But the base is that you build a very good infrastructure for your clients, or the people who are riding, and then adding some support with the marketing, cycling, and so on. So I think that's the way to put the numbers up, and that is also one thing that Veera sort of said it already, that if we have the quality bike paths built, then we have to maintain them in the winter also. And there is a huge potential that of the people that could cycle, I mean, like the late fall or early spring, if we keep the bike paths well rideable. And the winter varies a lot in Helsinki, and that is one big issue. Sometimes we don't have any snow, and sometimes we have 4 to 5 months of snow, and that is of course difficult for maintenance. It would be easier if there would be always snow and it would be always below zero. But I think you have to use the right tools for right kind of winter maintenance, and that is the key to success in the winter cycling.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I could ask now from Jukkis, do we have questions from audience?
Yes, we have plenty actually. So I was about to chip in that let's make room for these as well. Really good ones here. So first one from Heikki Palomäki. Who is referring to one of the previous presentations of the day. So in other discussions today, an idea was addressed, earmarking parking fees to improving sustainable modes. Is this possible, or has that been discussed in Copenhagen? So I guess question for Morten.
Yes, it has been discussed a lot. In Copenhagen, the parking fees have been set so that in a way that the more polluting your car is, the more expensive it is to park. And that means that a hydrogen or an electric car costs almost nothing to buy a license to park your car. Whereas if you have an old fossil car, then it's very expensive. And the money then goes, you can say, into the city, but is in many ways being spent in the same administration that also builds the bike infrastructure and the other kinds of mobility infrastructure in Copenhagen, so that there is a direct link between who gets the money and who takes the money. And I think that is a really good incentive also to see and to show citizens what is it that their money is being spent on, because they can see the differences. I mean, it should be said that the parking fees are also being used to build parking facilities and parking houses. So it's not just active and green mobility. It's also parking facilities away from the street to avoid street parking and to get the parking away from above ground.
Great, thank you. Then the next question is from Roman, and he is asking, what is the future of the speed Pedilex in Scandinavia? If the EU simplifies the process of certification for speed Pedilex manufacturers, they will be cheaper, and most likely they will become popular. Is the infrastructure ready for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I could start, and I think that's one of the reasons why we really need to have a good infrastructure, because we have different kind of bicycles and electronic bicycles, and also a lot of micromobility that are like new kind of ways to move. So we need a really good infrastructure that we can really take it over here. Or what do you think, Niko? Is there something you would like to say?
I think that is a very good thing to think, because the existing infrastructure, for example, in many Finnish cities, are not even good for so many cyclists that are using it. So when there are more traffic modes and going both directions, so we can expect some hassle there, assuming that the Pedilex are booming at some point or something like that. So we should really speed up our infrastructure renewal in the cities and possibly go to unidirectional systems in the dense cities.
Yeah, thank you. Then we have a question from Stefan, and he's asking, the amount of cyclists during winter changes heavily between cities in Finland. How much of an impact do you think it has to cycling in general? Should we concentrate more on the reasons why people don't cycle throughout the year?
That is a good question. Do you, Veera, want to continue from this one? You already talked about winter issues.
Yeah. For us in the Federation, actually, it's in general important that people cycle sometimes a few times a year or every day the year. So most important is that they do cycle. So I don't think that's very it's important that it would be possible to cycle in the winter, but I don't think that there are many people who are just happy to put the bicycle in somewhere in the autumn, and then again in the spring they will continue the cycling, and they don't. But I don't know if that would be. But of course we are working on that it would be more easier and more safe to cycle in the winter. But we don't think that that's the most maybe important question in the. For many people, it's just that they also don't like the cold weather or whatever. So it's not only that the bike lanes are clean or not. So, but slowly, of course, we try to keep on. And we have some good example cities then from the northern Finland, which could then show example. Of course, that's more easier in the North Finland, where you have normally minus degrees, so it's easier to cycle. But yeah.
Thanks a lot. Then we have a question from Jaakko Klang. Why has cycling become a hot topic in European cities, demonstrated by the growth in the modal share of cycling and by the proliferation of bicycle sharing plans in Europe?
Do you want to start, Morten?
I'm not sure I understood the question, to be honest. If you guys can repeat it again, please.
The main question here, there are kind of sub-questions as well, is the why cycling has become the hot topic in European cities.
I think it's because that cycling is efficient, that you can transport so many more people on a bicycle lane than you can on a car lane, that it's very attractive for cities to build this kind of infrastructure. It's cheap, which is also attractive. And then we've seen in Corona times that we need to keep some distancing between us. And there, I think that whenever we see that the bicycle is, you can say, built for Corona distances. We are 1 meter to 2 meters away from each other very automatically, meaning that you get the safety, you get the perceived safety, and then at the same time, you get a very efficient mode of transport around the cities. So that just shows that we can actually use bicycles also these times as a very efficient and very practical means of transportation. And I think that has meant that many cities and governments are saying, there are good points in this. And then for the European Commission, they have noticed that, and that's their calculations, that the building bicycle infrastructure actually creates 30% more jobs than building road infrastructure in general. So for the Commission, who wants to promote growth in Europe, then, of course, promoting bicycle infrastructure is a good way of getting the economy back on track. And we need the green recovery now, and we are just starting it. So that, of course, means that it's attractive also for Brussels to get this started.
Yeah, makes sense. Then we have a couple of more questions. So Stefan is continuing with a question. Many cities in Finland pump loads of money into parking infrastructure and public transportation just to get a few percentage changes in the modal share. Is there a hidden potential in cycling that isn't exploited enough? Could we get a bigger change by investing in cycling infrastructure?
There is no doubt. If I may start, I was part in a previous job in counseling a Russian city that basically had no bicycles, but where the mayor decided to become Russia's most bicycle-friendly city. They built a very Copenhagen-style infrastructure, and 18 months later, they have gone from 0 to 10% modal share on bicycles, which meant that there were less congestion, less air pollution, and a lot more happy people who actually got around town. And 18 months to 10%, that just shows that you can do this in any city and that there is a huge unleashed potential, no doubt about it, even for very little money.
Yeah. And I think all the things we just heard actually strengthen this message that, yes, there is a potential. And another one from Stefan. Most of us have heard about the news of huge sales of electric bikes in Europe. Are we seeing new cyclists or just cyclists changing into electric bikes? If they are new users and infrastructure doesn't keep up, what will happen? So,
what do you think, Niko, here in Finland?
Well, that is a concern because many of our bike paths are not suitable for a lot of bike flow, a big bike flow. So we definitely should be prepared and make sure that our bike paths are built for vehicles, as in principle, and we can have a glance at the intersections where we have to be able to turn in every direction and without interfering the other direction that is crossing your path and so on. So I think when the electric bikes are coming, they are coming for sure. We are in a situation in Finland that we need to quickly renew our system for bikes. That's for sure. So we are in a hurry.
Thanks, Niko. Any additional comment from Morten to this one?
What we see in the Netherlands is that more than 50% of new bikes now are e-bikes. Sweden, as it was said before, which I think is very comparable to both Denmark and Finland in that sense, had a subsidy scheme where they noticed that they sold a lot of e-bikes. And the interesting thing was that the bikes then replaced, you can say, the second car of the family, reducing the number of overall cars on the street, simply because people can commute much longer than they do on an old-fashioned bike. And that meant that the limit for when you want to use your bike suddenly gets from 5 to 6 kilometers up to 10 to 12 to 15 kilometers. And that means that for longer distance commuting, you suddenly take the e-bike as a viable alternative. And that means that it's new bicyclists, but that also means that they will, as it was said before, demand better infrastructure. And that will, of course, be very interesting to see that in the future on what kind of demands this will bring.
What about Veera? Is there something to add from Cyclist Federation?
Well, I have no numbers and nothing. I think Morten and Niko already answered the question. So, but it would be very interesting to know actually how the situation is. Okay. And I'm sorry, I need to leave for my other duties. So I will thank you now already for the discussion, and I wish you a nice continuing of the day.
Thank you. I'm just handing over back to Reetta to just conclude the session. So any final remarks from your side?
Yeah, I think it's infrastructure we really need over here in Finland. So we will continue with that work.
Excellent. Thank you, Reetta, Veera, Niko, and Morten.